The sky of Varen burned in red and silver fire. The ground shook as plasma shells hit the rocky plain. Human soldiers ran between broken walls, trying to hold their line against the Thrain assault. The air was thick with smoke and dust, and every breath felt like fire. Private Ray crouched behind a shattered carrier, gripping his rifle with trembling hands. He had fought for 3 days without rest. His armor was cracked, his visor was smeared with ash, and his legs ached from running and crawling through the ruins. The human base at Varen Ridge was falling apart, but orders were simple: hold the line until reinforcements arrived. A plasma blast hit the carrier beside him, shaking it apart. Ray rolled away and took cover behind a large piece of metal. He fired into the smoke where he saw flashes of movement. The rifle hummed with each shot, its battery near empty. When the smoke cleared, he saw no one. Silence came for a moment. Then a strange sound echoed across the ridge. It was not human, not machine. It was a voice, deep and melodic, carrying through the chaos like a song. Ray peeked out and saw a figure walking slowly through the haze. It was a Thrain warrior, tall and armored in silver and blue plates. Her helmet had been torn away, revealing pale skin marked with faint lines of glowing gold. Her eyes shone like molten glass. She carried a long spear that flickered with faint light, though it looked cracked and weak. Ray raised his rifle, ready to fire, but stopped. She was not attacking. Instead, she turned to face 3 other Thrain soldiers running toward her. Their weapons were drawn, and they shouted in their strange tongue. The female warrior dropped her spear and raised her hands as if to reason with them. They did not stop. The first soldier struck her across the face with a staff. She fell to one knee. The others circled her, shouting and pointing at her weapon. Ray watched, confused. They were not fighting humans now. They were fighting their own. He hesitated only a second, then his body moved on its own. He rushed out from cover, sprinting toward the group. The Thrain soldiers saw him and turned their weapons on him, firing quick bursts of energy. Ray dove into the dirt, feeling the heat pass over his shoulder. He rolled forward, grabbed the fallen spear beside the wounded warrior, and lifted it in both hands. The weapon was heavier than it looked, its cracked surface humming with strange warmth. As Ray raised it to block a strike, a pulse of white light exploded from the spear. It knocked the Thrain attackers backward and lit the battlefield like a star had burst open. Everything stopped. The Thrain soldiers froze, their faces filled with shock. One of them dropped his weapon and fell to his knees, murmuring something that sounded like prayer. The wounded female stared at Ray with wide eyes. Her mouth moved, whispering words he could not understand. The spear vibrated in his hand, and faint lines of golden light ran up his arm. Ray dropped it, startled. The spear landed beside her, still glowing softly. The other Thrain soldiers backed away slowly. One of them pointed at Ray, then at the spear, then spoke a single word that made the others turn pale. They fled into the smoke without another shot. Ray knelt beside the female warrior. She was bleeding from a cut across her shoulder. Her breathing was heavy, but she was alive. "Why were they attacking you?" Ray asked, keeping his voice calm. She looked at him for a long moment, as if deciding whether to answer. Then she said in broken English, "I refused the order. I would not kill the weak. They called me traitor." Ray frowned. Her voice carried pride and pain together. He tore a strip from his uniform and pressed it to her wound. She didn't resist. "Hold this," he said. "It will slow the bleeding." She obeyed. A low hum filled the air again, but this time it came from the spear. The light on its surface grew brighter. The woman's eyes widened. "You should not have touched it," she whispered. "You have awakened the law." Ray blinked. "What law?" "The law of the spear," she said, almost in disbelief. "By lifting the weapon of a fallen Thrain, you bind yourself to her fate. You are now her chosen one." Ray laughed once, thinking it was some strange superstition. "I was just trying to stop them from killing you." Her gaze turned serious. "The law does not care about your reason. It only knows what has been done." Ray looked down at his hand. The faint golden marks were fading, but not gone. He felt a strange warmth inside his chest, like something had been planted there. The sound of engines came from the distance. Human transports were approaching. He looked back at the female warrior. "You need medical help. Can you walk?" She nodded weakly. Ray helped her up and supported her as they made their way toward the human line. Soldiers pointed weapons when they saw her, but Ray shouted, "Hold your fire. She's surrendering." They reached the camp entrance. Commander Halen met them, his armor blackened with dust. He stared at Ray, then at the Thrain beside him. "What is this, soldier?" Ray straightened. "Found her during the fight. Her people turned on her. She's injured." Halen's eyes narrowed. "And you brought her here?" "You know the rules, Private. No prisoners without clearance." "She's not a prisoner," Ray said quickly. "She's different." Arian, though weak, stood upright. "I am Arian of the Thrain Guard," she said clearly. "Your soldier has claimed my spear. By our law, he is bound to me, harm me, and the law will curse both sides." The soldiers nearby exchanged uneasy looks. Halen frowned. "What is she talking about?" Ray shrugged. "Some kind of ritual thing. I don't understand it either." Halen sighed. "We'll sort this out later. Put her in containment for now. And Ray, you're on watch duty until I decide what to do with you." Ray nodded. "Yes, sir." They led Arian to a small tent under guard. Ray stayed outside, sitting on a crate, staring at the broken spear that still glowed faintly under a tarp. He could feel it pulsing like a heartbeat matching his own. Night came. The air was cold and the camp was silent except for distant thunder. Ray could not sleep. His arm still carried faint marks of light hidden under his sleeve. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes, shapes of tall beings standing beside humans in ancient armor, fighting together against dark skies. He opened his eyes and saw Arian watching him from inside the tent. "You are afraid," she said quietly. He nodded slightly. "Wouldn't you be if a weapon started glowing in your hand?" She smiled faintly. "The spear is alive in a way. It remembers its master, and now it remembers you. The law has accepted the bond." "I didn't ask for any bond," Ray said. "No one ever does," she replied. "But the law chooses who it must. You have courage, human. That is why it woke for you." Ray looked at the horizon. "Your people think I'm some kind of thief. My own commander thinks I've lost my mind. I just wanted to help." "Help is never small," Arian said. "When one stands between life and death for another, something greater takes notice. That is the truth of our law." The wind carried the sound of distant battle again. Somewhere out there, humans and Thrain were still killing each other. Ray wondered what he had done to deserve this strange turn of fate. He turned back toward the spear, still pulsing softly beneath the tarp. "So what happens now?" Arian looked at him with calm eyes. "Now we survive. The law has bound our paths. Until the end of battle or the end of life, you stand with me." Ray sighed. "Guess that makes us allies then." She tilted her head slightly. "Allies, yes. A word we have not used for many generations." As the night deepened, the stars above Varen shimmered through the smoke. Ray sat quietly, the broken spear beside him, unaware that its faint light was being seen far beyond the camp. In the mountains, old sensors buried for centuries came alive, whispering through the ancient network. Somewhere deep underground, machines stirred from long sleep, responding to a signal that had not been heard for 1,000 years. Ray had no idea that by raising the broken spear to protect a stranger, he had awakened something far greater than a legend. The morning on Varen Ridge was quiet but tense. Smoke still rose from the scorched plains where the fighting had ended. The camp buzzed with uneasy energy. Soldiers repaired armor, cleaned rifles, and whispered about the strange light they had seen the day before. Inside a command tent, Commander Halen stood before a holographic map, speaking with his officers. Red markers showed enemy positions closing in. Supplies were low. Reinforcements were delayed again. Ray waited outside, sitting on a crate near Arian's tent. The Thrain warrior had been given medical attention, but no one trusted her. Guards watched her constantly, their rifles always ready. Ray could feel their suspicion toward him, too. He stared at the tarp covering the broken spear. The faint golden glow still pulsed underneath it. It felt alive. He had barely slept since the battle. Every time he closed his eyes, strange visions appeared. Ruins covered in light, stone statues of humans and Thrain standing together, and a symbol of a sun surrounded by 12 stars. When Arian stepped out of her tent, the guards tensed. She wore simple fabric clothing instead of her broken armor. Her movements were slow but graceful, as if she carried invisible weight. "You look better," Ray said quietly. "I heal fast," she replied. Her golden eyes studied the camp. "Your people fear what they do not understand. Can you blame them?" Ray said, "We've been fighting your kind for years. Then I bring you in, holding a glowing spear, and everyone thinks I've lost it." Arian's voice was calm. "The law of the spear is older than your wars. It was made when our ancestors fought side by side. It binds two warriors of different blood to one fate. Ray frowned. You keep talking about that law. What happens if we break it? She looked at him with a serious expression. Breaking the law calls the wrath. It means death for both and ruin for those around them. That is why my people fear you now. The bond you made cannot be undone by choice. Before Ray could answer, a voice shouted from across the camp. Private Ray, Commander wants you in the tent now. Ray stood and followed the order. Arian stayed where she was, watching quietly. Inside the command tent, the air was thick with tension. Commander Halen pointed to the glowing spear lying on a metal table. What exactly did you do yesterday, soldier? I don't know, sir, Ray said. I tried to protect her. I picked up the spear and it just reacted. It reacted all right, Halen said. Half our sensors went offline the moment it lit up. And then the Thrain lines pulled back. Now they're broadcasting some strange message across every channel. He pressed a button. The air filled with static. Then a deep voice spoke in the Thrain language. Arian's name was mentioned several times along with a word that the translator rendered as chosen. They're calling you something, Halen said. Something like the Bound One. They're demanding we hand you and the alien over. Ray felt his stomach tighten. And if we don't? They say the law will punish us, Halen said. Superstitious nonsense, if you ask me. Still, I don't like the timing. You and that thing, he nodded toward the spear, seem to have woken something ancient, and I don't want it near my men. He turned to Ray. You're being transferred to the Outer Ridge watch post. Take the alien with you. Fewer eyes, fewer problems. Ray wanted to argue, but Halen's tone left no room for debate. He saluted and left the tent. Arian was waiting outside. We are being sent away, she said, already knowing. Ray nodded. Yeah, guess we're both unwanted company. Within the hour, they were escorted out of the camp with 2 drones following overhead. They walked along the dusty road leading toward the Outer Ridge. The landscape was harsh. Red cliffs, twisted rocks, and shadows that stretched for miles. The wind carried a low hum, almost like a whisper. They reached an old outpost built into the side of a hill. It had been abandoned after the first invasion. Metal doors creaked as Ray forced them open. Inside, the air was cold and filled with the smell of dust. He dropped his pack and sighed. Welcome home, I guess. Arian walked slowly around the room, touching the walls. This place has old energy. It remembers battle. You can feel that. Ray asked. Yes, she said softly. We Thrain sense echoes. This world holds many of them. As night fell, Ray lit a small power lamp. They sat in silence for a while. Arian finally broke it. When you raised the spear, it marked you. I saw the light of the bond on your hand. Do you still feel it? Ray looked at his arm. The golden lines had faded, but when he focused, he could sense a faint rhythm beneath his skin. It's like it's part of me now. That is how the law works, she said. It joins spirit to spirit. We are not enemies anymore. Our fates are one. He leaned back against the wall. That's hard to believe after everything our people have done. Arian's voice was calm but sad. Your people forget what once was. Long ago, humans and Thrain were allies. We fought together against a darkness called the Vol. When the war ended, our worlds drifted apart. We forgot unity and remembered only fear. Ray thought about her words. He had always been told the Thrain were savage and cruel. But the woman sitting before him spoke with wisdom, not hate. Before he could reply, the outpost lights flickered. The drones outside began to beep in alarm. Ray jumped to his feet and grabbed his rifle. What now? Arian's eyes glowed faintly. Something is coming. They stepped outside. The night sky rippled with strange light. A group of Thrain soldiers was approaching, carrying banners with blue symbols. They were not attacking. The leader, a tall male in silver armor, raised his weapon and spoke loudly in the Thrain tongue. Arian answered in her language, her voice firm. The conversation grew tense. Ray could not understand, but he could see anger in the soldiers' faces. Then one of them pointed at Ray and shouted a word that sounded like defiler. Arian stepped in front of him. You will not harm him, she said sharply. The leader's voice was filled with rage. He broke the divide. He holds the spear. The law demands he be judged. Arian lifted her chin. He did not steal it. He defended it. The law has chosen. The leader drew his weapon. Then the law is corrupted. Before Ray could move, the leader fired. A beam of energy shot toward them. Arian pushed Ray aside and blocked the strike with her arm. The impact threw her backward. Ray shouted and raised his rifle, firing back. 2 of the Thrain fell, but more moved in. Ray grabbed the broken spear from his pack. The moment his hand touched it, the world flashed in golden light again. The spear straightened, repairing itself slightly as if alive. A deep hum filled the air. The Thrain soldiers froze, eyes wide with fear. Arian stood, breathing hard. The glow from the spear reflected in her eyes. "The law protects its chosen," she said. The leader stepped back, lowering his weapon. He spoke softly in his language, almost in awe. Then he and his soldiers slowly retreated into the darkness. When they were gone, Ray looked at Arian. "You could have been killed." "I would have been," she said. "But the law shielded me through you." He stared at the glowing weapon. "I don't understand any of this. Why me?" "I'm just a soldier." Arian placed her hand on the spear. "The law does not choose by rank or blood. It chooses by heart. You acted without thought for yourself. That is rare among any race." They returned inside. The spear rested against the wall, still glowing faintly. Ray paced the room, his mind racing. "If your people keep coming after us, we can't stay here." Arian nodded. "There is a place in the east called the Hollow Spire. It is old, built by both our ancestors. If we go there, we may find answers." Ray sighed. "Then that's where we'll go." At dawn, he sat down and cleaned his rifle, though his thoughts were far away. He remembered the light, the energy that had flowed through him. It felt like power, but also a burden. As Arian rested, Ray looked at her face in the dim light. She no longer looked like an enemy. There was something human in her calm strength. He realized that he no longer saw her as just another Thrain. Outside, the wind howled through the rocks. The golden glow of the spear shimmered across the walls, casting long shadows that moved like living shapes. Arian opened her eyes and spoke softly. "Ray, the path ahead will not be easy. Once the law awakens, it draws those who wish to test it. Both human and Thrain will come for us." Ray looked at the spear. "Then we make them regret it." For the first time, Arian smiled. It was a faint, quiet smile, but it carried warmth. "You speak like a true warrior of the law." Ray leaned back, feeling the ground vibrate slightly under him. Somewhere deep below, the earth groaned like something ancient stirring. He didn't know it yet, but the energy from the spear had traveled through the soil into forgotten machines buried under Varen's surface. They were old guardians built long before either race remembered history. The light on the spear flickered once more before fading to a steady glow. Ray finally closed his eyes. The next day would begin their journey into the ruins of the past where truth waited and danger watched from the shadows. The morning sun rose over the red cliffs of Varen, casting long shadows across the broken plains. The wind was cold and sharp, carrying the scent of burnt metal and dust. Ray stood at the edge of the old outpost, staring toward the eastern horizon. Beyond the hills lay the Hollow Spire, the ancient place Arian had spoken of. It was their next destination. Arian walked beside him, her silver hair moving lightly in the wind. The wounds on her arm had healed, leaving faint golden lines across her skin. She carried the broken spear on her back, now stable but still glowing faintly. Ray checked his rifle and his small pack. "We have food for 2 days. After that, we'll have to scavenge." Arian nodded. "The Hollow Spire is 2 days east if we move fast." "The path is not safe. The Thrain and humans both patrol these lands." Ray looked at her. "Then we avoid both." They left the outpost behind, walking through the dry valley. The world around them felt lifeless, yet every few steps they saw signs of the past. Metal fragments half buried in the sand, statues broken by time, and the faint glow of energy lines under the ground. Ray tried to focus on their path, but his thoughts kept drifting to the strange visions he had been seeing. Every night since he touched the spear, he dreamed of tall towers covered in light and 2 armies standing together under one banner. The dreams felt too real to be imagination. As they walked, he asked, "These visions I keep seeing, are they part of the bond?" Arian looked at him with calm eyes. "Yes, the law connects more than our bodies. It connects our memories. The spear holds the record of the first bond between our races. You see fragments of that past. Then humans and Thrain really did fight together once?" She nodded. "Long ago, before the Great Silence, the Vol came from beyond the stars. Machines that devoured worlds. Our ancestors stood together to stop them. When victory came, the bond between our peoples was sealed through the law of the spear. But time erased the truth and fear replaced trust." Ray listened silently. It was hard to imagine such unity after years of war. By afternoon, they reached the ruins of an old battlefield. The ground was blackened and skeletons of machines lay scattered everywhere. Metal towers leaned at strange angles, humming with faint energy. Arian knelt beside one of the structures. "This is not human or Thrain design," she said softly. "These are Vol ruins." Ray stepped closer. "They look ancient. How are they still active?" "The Vol were built to last forever. They do not die as we do," Arian said. She pressed her hand to the surface, and a pattern of light spread under her touch. "But they sleep until they hear the voice of the bond." Before Ray could ask what she meant, the ground shook. A deep hum echoed through the ruins. Metal fragments began to rise slightly, pulled by invisible energy. Ray raised his rifle. "What's happening?" "The spear's energy is calling to the old systems," Arian said. "Do not fear." A beam of light shot from the center of the ruins into the sky. It spread into shapes, symbols and patterns moving like flowing water. Ray stared in awe. The light formed images of humans and Thran standing side by side, holding weapons of light. Then the images shifted to darkness. Tall machine creatures spreading across stars, devouring everything. The beam faded, and silence returned. Arian stood still, her eyes wide. "The spear has shown us what it remembers. The Vol are not gone. They are waiting." Ray felt a cold weight in his chest. "If they return, neither side will survive. That is why the law has awakened," she said. "It calls for unity once more." They continued their journey until night fell. They found shelter in a half-buried transport wreck. The air was dry and cold. Ray started a small heater while Arian sat nearby, cleaning the spear's surface. Ray watched her work. "When this is over, what happens to the bond?" She looked up. "The bond ends only in two ways, death or victory. So if we win, we're free?" She smiled faintly. "Free, yes. But no one who carries the bond is ever the same again. It changes the heart." Ray thought about that as he lay back against the wall. He was starting to feel the same warmth from the spear even when it was not near him. It was like a pulse that matched his own heartbeat. He closed his eyes and soon drifted into sleep. His dream took him to a wide hall made of crystal and light. Hundreds of figures stood in two rows, humans on one side, Thrain on the other. At the center stood a man holding a golden spear. Behind him was a woman with glowing eyes who looked like Arian. The man turned and spoke, but Ray could not hear the words. The woman placed her hand over his, and the hall filled with golden fire. Ray woke suddenly. The heater had gone out, and the air was cold. Arian was awake too, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "You saw it again, didn't you?" she asked. He nodded. "A hall, a man and woman." They held the spear together. Arian looked thoughtful. "Those were the first chosen. Their bond ended the first war. The spear remembers them through you." Before Ray could speak again, a sharp noise echoed from outside. They both grabbed their weapons and moved quietly to the entrance. The moonlight revealed a group of human soldiers moving through the ruins, scanning the ground with lights. Ray whispered, "Recon unit. They're from the main base." Arian's eyes narrowed. "If they find me, they will not let me live." Ray made a quick decision. "Stay here. I'll draw them away." He slipped out into the darkness, circling behind the soldiers. He knew the terrain better than most, having fought here weeks before. He threw a small rock toward the far side of the ruins. The sound drew two of the soldiers away from the group. Ray moved fast, knocking one down and disarming the other before they could react. When the rest turned, Arian stepped from the shadows. The spear glowed in her hand. The light blinded the soldiers for a moment. Ray took advantage and shouted, "Fall back. Area unstable." Confused, the soldiers retreated, thinking the ruins were about to collapse. When they were gone, Ray and Arian regrouped inside the transport. Arian looked at him seriously. "You risked your life for me again." Ray shrugged. "I guess I'm getting used to it. You act without fear. The law responds to such courage." He sat down, breathing heavily. "If that's what courage feels like, it's exhausting." She smiled slightly, then her expression grew distant. "The Vol are stirring beneath this world. I felt their signal when the spear awakened the ruins. We must reach the hollow spire before they rise fully." Ray looked out at the horizon where faint blue light shimmered in the distance. "Then we move at dawn." When the morning came, they resumed their march. The land grew harsher, filled with deep cracks and strange metallic plants that hummed when touched. The spear's glow grew stronger the closer they came to the spire. By afternoon, they finally saw it. A tall, twisted structure of stone and crystal rising from the ground, like the spine of a giant. Light rippled along its surface. Arian whispered, "The hollow spire, built by our ancestors as a meeting place between species." Ray stared in awe. "It looks alive." They entered through a wide archway. Inside, the air was cool and filled with faint humming. Symbols covered the walls, glowing with blue and gold lines. As they walked deeper, the light followed them, as if recognizing their presence. At the center of the chamber stood a circular platform. On it rested a metallic pedestal with strange runes. Arian approached carefully. "This is the heart of the spire. It contains the memory of the first bond." Ray stepped beside her. "What do we do?" "Place the spear here," she said. He lifted the weapon and set it into the pedestal. The moment it touched the surface, the entire chamber came alive. Light raced across the walls. Holographic images filled the air, showing the first alliance between humans and Thrain. Voices echoed in two languages, blending into one melody. Then a deeper voice spoke from the air, translated automatically by their devices. "The law has awakened. The chosen have returned. The Vol are near." Ray and Arian exchanged a look of shock. The voice continued. "To stand against the Vol once more, the bond must be complete. Heart and spirit must join as one. Only then will the spear's full power return." The light faded slowly, leaving them in silence. Ray felt his chest tighten. "What does that mean? Complete the bond?" Arian's expression was unreadable. "It means our fates are now tied by more than battle. The law calls for unity of will. You must trust me completely, and I must trust you the same." Ray nodded slowly. "Then let's finish what we started," she smiled faintly. "Then we are one in purpose." Unseen by them, deep under the hollow spire, mechanical shapes began to stir. Ancient eyes of metal opened after centuries of silence. The Vol were awakening. The hollow spire glowed faintly in the dim light of Varen's twin moons. Its walls hummed with energy, and the broken spear rested on the pedestal, now pulsing steadily with gold and blue light. Ray stood beside Arian, feeling the warmth from the weapon seep into his bones. Outside, the winds carried a low, vibrating hum. Ray felt it under his feet in the rock itself. He glanced at Arian. "Is that the Vol?" She nodded, her eyes narrowed. "They are stirring beneath the surface." The moment the spear awakened the spire, they began to move. The machines never sleep fully. They only wait for a signal. Ray looked around. The spire was built with halls, chambers, and corridors that twisted like veins. Strange symbols covered every surface. Arian touched one lightly, and the symbol glowed brighter. "These markings hold the memories of our ancestors. They will guide us to the knowledge we need." They moved deeper into the spire. Each step echoed across the stone corridors. The air was cool but charged with energy. Ray felt the spear's pulse increasing as they approached a massive chamber. The walls glowed with runes that shifted and flowed like living rivers. At the center of the room was a circular platform. A holographic map floated above it, showing Varen's surface. Red dots moved across the map, representing cities, villages, and human and Thrain outposts. Then the dots multiplied. Blue lines raced across the terrain, trails of incoming machines. "The Vol are coming," Arian said softly. "They will attack both sides. Neither human nor Thrain can survive alone." Ray clenched his fists. "Then we unite them." Arian placed her hand over his. The spear responded, glowing brighter where their fingers touched. Light flowed from it into the platform, and the holographic map shifted to reveal energy nodes buried underground. Some nodes pulsed with gold light, others with red. "These are Vol control points," Arian said. "They manage the machines from these locations. We must destroy them before the Vol overwhelm the surface, but we cannot do it alone. We need the combined strength of humans and Thrain." Ray looked at her. "And you think they will cooperate?" She smiled faintly. "If they see the law has chosen one of each race, they may listen. But it will not be easy. Old hatred runs deep." Ray ran his hand along the spear. Its warmth steadied his nerves. "Then we make them listen." They left the chamber and moved through the spire's upper corridors. The walls seemed alive, responding to their presence. Arian explained the history of the spire in quiet tones. Humans and Thrain had built it together thousands of years ago. It had served as a central command, a meeting hall and a safe place for knowledge and technology. The Vol had attacked during the First War, and the spire had sealed itself to protect its secrets. Now, with the bond of the spear, the spire had reopened. Its energy flowed freely once more. As they reached the surface, the sky above Varen had darkened unnaturally. Clouds swirled in circles, moving with impossible speed. Then the first of the Vol ships appeared, massive machines that glowed with blue light and moved as if alive. They descended from orbit, their surfaces covered with weapons and sensors. The ground trembled beneath their landing. Ray's jaw tightened. "They're here," Arian's eyes glowed. "And they will not stop until they consume everything." The first attack came swiftly. Energy beams tore through the plains, reducing buildings to molten metal. Humans and Thrains scrambled to defend their positions. The two armies were forced to retreat toward the spire, leaving cities burning behind them. Ray and Arian gathered a small group of humans and Thrain willing to fight together. Soldiers who trusted neither side watched warily as Ray raised the spear. Its glow pulsed in the twilight, visible for miles. Arian chanted in her language, her voice resonating with the energy of the spire. The light around them intensified, creating a shield that protected their group from the Vol's first strikes. The bond between Ray and Arian strengthened with each moment. The law was active now, guiding their actions. Ray's reflexes became sharper. He moved faster, dodging energy blasts and leading attacks that seemed impossible for a normal human. Arian's precision with the spear was unmatched, her movements perfectly timed with his. They reached the first Vol control node, a massive tower half buried in a canyon. The structure was heavily defended, its surface alive with energy conduits. Ray approached, lifting the spear. The weapon reacted instantly, emitting beams that cut through the defenses. Arian stood beside him, guiding the energy. "Focus together. The law strengthens both of us." They synchronized their movements. Every strike of the spear produced a shockwave, dismantling the node's defenses. When the energy reached the core, the structure collapsed, sending a wave of light into the sky. The nearby Vol units faltered as their control link was broken. "Keep moving," Arian shouted. "There are more nodes." They traveled from one control point to another, destroying each in turn. Their small force grew as humans and Thrain saw the power of the spear and the unity of its chosen. Soldiers began to trust one another, fighting together in ways they had never imagined. Ray felt exhaustion creeping in, but the bond kept him steady. Every time he felt fear, the spear's warmth reminded him that they were not alone. Arian's presence strengthened him further. Together they were more than a soldier and a warrior. They were a force guided by the law itself. The final node loomed in a valley far from the spire. It was massive, built from black metal and glowing with red energy. Ray and Arian approached carefully, leading their combined force of humans and Thrain. The Vol were ready. A massive machine emerged from the node, towering over the ground. Its limbs were covered with energy weapons, and its glowing eyes scanned for threats. Ray raised the spear. Its light flared, creating a dome of energy that protected their forces from the machine's first strike. Arian moved forward, her voice chanting the ancient words of her people. The spear responded, extending an energy like a living weapon. Ray followed, striking with precision, guided by the bond. Each blow tore through the machine's armor, but it was relentless. Ray realized that defeating it required more than strength. They needed unity. He shouted to both armies, "Fight together! We are one now." Humans and Thrain responded instantly. Their attacks coordinated, using the machine's own energy against it. The spear's light guided their movements. Step by step, they dismantled the Vol Guardian. Finally, Ray and Arian delivered a combined strike to the core. The machine exploded, sending a wave of energy across the valley. When the dust settled, silence fell. The soldiers looked around in shock. The Vol node was destroyed. The remaining machines retreated, sensing their control network had been broken. Ray dropped the spear, breathing heavily. Arian placed her hand over his. "The law has favored us, but the war is not over. There are more Vol below the surface." He looked at the horizon. Fire still burned, and both humans and Thrain were wounded. "Then we rebuild, together." For the first time, both armies saw each other not as enemies, but as allies. The power of the Chosen and the law had shown them a path forward. Ray and Arian stood atop the valley, the spear glowing softly between them. "The bond," Ray said quietly. "It's more than a weapon. It's a promise," Arian nodded. "A promise to protect each other, to rise above hatred and to face what comes next." Above them, the twin suns of Varen rose slowly, casting light across a battlefield no longer divided. The first step toward unity had been made. Deep beneath the surface, in the shadowed tunnels of the Vol network, machines stirred, their eyes glowing faintly. They had retreated, but they were not defeated. They would return. Ray looked at Ariane. Then we prepare, together. She placed her hand on his shoulder. Together. The skies over Varen burned with fire and shadow. The Vol had returned, their massive ships slicing through the atmosphere like metallic comets. Cities trembled as energy beams cut through buildings, and both human and Thrain forces struggled to hold their positions. Ray stood on the highest ridge overlooking the battlefield, the broken spear glowing brightly in his hands. Ariane was beside him, her golden eyes shining with calm determination. They had gathered a combined force of humans and Thrain who trusted the law and the bond between the chosen. Are we ready? Ray asked, gripping the spear tightly. Ariane nodded. The law guides us. The Vol will fall if we fight together, but we must be swift. Delay will cost lives. Ray took a deep breath. He could feel the pulse of the spear through his arm, a rhythm that matched his heartbeat. Every strike, every decision felt guided by something greater than himself. The bond with Ariane was no longer simple trust. It was a force that connected them, weaving their strength, skill, and courage into one. Below, the Vol forces advanced. The ground shook as machines of every size poured from their fallen nodes. Smaller drones darted across the battlefield while massive machines crushed anything in their path. Ray's combined forces formed a line at the spire, ready to defend the last stronghold. Ariane lifted the spear, its glow expanding until it bathed the ridge in gold and blue light. Follow me, she said. Strike as one. Trust the law. Ray raised his rifle briefly, then placed his hand on the spear. Energy surged through him, faster than thought, faster than fear. They charged down the slope together. The first Vol machine they faced was enormous, its limbs bristling with energy blades. Ray dodged an overhead swing, feeling the law guide his movements. He jabbed with the spear, sending a pulse of golden energy that shattered one of its limbs. Ariane moved beside him, striking with perfect timing, her weapon slicing through the armor like it was paper. The smaller soldiers followed their lead. Humans and Thrain moved together in coordinated waves, inspired by the bond between the chosen. They struck and retreated as one, guided by instinct and the growing presence of the law. The Vol were strong, but the unity of the two species amplified the spear's power. A massive Vol commander emerged from the distance, its body towering over the battlefield. Its glowing eyes scanned the ground and its weapons fired simultaneously, flattening entire squads. Ray felt the weight of the moment, knowing that this machine alone could turn the tide. Ariane placed her hand over his shoulder. We are the law's chosen. Together we can strike it down, Ray nodded. They charged forward, the spear radiating a blinding light. The Vol machine swung its limbs, but Ray anticipated every move, guided by the bond. He dodged a massive arm and jabbed the spear into its core. Ariane channeled her energy into the strike, and the machine staggered. The ground shook as they pulled the spear free and thrust again. Sparks and energy erupted from the machine, tearing through its armor. Soldiers cheered as they saw it falter, moving as one with the chosen guiding them. The final strike came together. Ray jumped onto the machine's shoulder, Ariane following. The spear glowed brighter than ever. With a powerful thrust, they drove it into the core. Light exploded in a shockwave, sending machines flying in every direction. The ground trembled violently, and for a moment the world seemed suspended in golden brilliance. When the light faded, the battlefield was silent. The Vol forces had been shattered. Smaller drones fled and the massive commander lay destroyed. Humans and Thrain alike stared in awe at the chosen standing together, the spear glowing faintly now as if resting after its work. Ray lowered the weapon, breathing heavily. Is it over? Ariane looked around at the remaining forces who were cheering and helping the wounded. For now, but the law always watches. The Vol may rise again. We must remain vigilant, yet today we have proven what unity can do. Ray looked at the soldiers around him. Humans were helping Thrain up, sharing water and supplies. Old rivalries seemed to vanish in the light of shared victory. He turned to Ariane. You were right, the bond. It changed everything, she smiled faintly. The law does not force change. It only awakens what is already possible. Humanity and Thrain can rise together if they choose. A child ran across the battlefield holding a small flag made from scraps of cloth. Ray watched as soldiers lifted her onto their shoulders, celebrating life rather than war. He felt hope, something he had not felt in years of fighting. Arian placed her hand on his arm. Ray, today you became more than a soldier. You became a symbol, a chosen of the law. Others will follow this path because of what we have done. Ray shook his head, smiling faintly. I didn't ask to be chosen. I just did what anyone should have done. Not everyone would have, Arian replied. The law chose because your heart acted without thought for yourself. That is rare, human. That is why you could awaken it. They walked toward the spire together. The glowing spear rested between them, a symbol of unity, courage, and hope. Around them, humans and Thrain began rebuilding, forming bonds that had seemed impossible before. Ray and Arian reached the pedestal at the spire's heart. Ray placed the spear back in its resting place. Its glow dimmed, but he could still feel its warmth, a gentle pulse that reminded him of their bond. Arian placed her hand beside his. The spear will wait until it is needed again, but we must carry the law in our hearts. The bond is not just about the weapon. It is about trust, courage, and standing together. Ray nodded. Then we rise together. The twin sons of Varen rose slowly over the horizon, casting long golden light across the battlefield. Smoke still drifted from distant cities, but the light of hope shone brighter. Humans in Thrain began to clear rubble, share supplies, and treat the wounded. Old enemies now looked at each other not with fear, but with cautious respect. Ray watched as Arian helped a human child to her feet. He felt the weight of everything that had happened, the battles, the bond, the awakening of the law. But he also felt something stronger. Humanity could rise not through conquest or fear, but by protecting others and standing together. Deep beneath the surface, the Vol machines had retreated. Their systems hummed faintly, observing, waiting. But the Chosen had proven that unity could overcome even the most ancient and relentless enemy. Arian looked at Ray. Do you feel it? The law. It is calm now, but vigilant. It watches us, and it will guide the future if we remain true to its path. Ray looked at the glowing spear. Then we keep it alive. Not just in the weapon, but in the hearts of those who fought today. That is the real power, she nodded. Yes. That is the essence of the law. To rise above hatred, to protect others, and to unite when the world is divided. Ray took a deep breath. Then let's begin rebuilding. Today the battle is over. Tomorrow we build a future. Together they left the spire, walking down the ridge with the spear between them. Soldiers of both races followed, carrying supplies, helping the wounded, and sharing stories of the fight. Laughter began to replace the sound of gunfire. Children ran through the fields, playing among the ruins, unaware of the horrors that had come and gone. Ray glanced at Arian. Do you think the Vol will return? They always will, she said calmly. But now humans in Thrain will be ready. The law has awakened a new path, a path of strength and unity. Ray smiled faintly, feeling the warmth of the spear and the weight of his bond. Then let them come. We will rise together as we should have long ago. The twin suns climbed higher in the sky. The glow of the hollow spire shone faintly behind them, a symbol of hope, courage, and the unity of two species that had once fought side by side. The story of Ray and Arian, the chosen of the law, would be remembered by both humans and Thrain for generations. Not because they wielded a powerful weapon, but because they showed that humanity could rise through courage, trust, and the protection of others. And as they walked into the brightening world, the broken spear pulsed one last time, not as a weapon, but as a beacon, reminding all that the law of the chosen was alive, and that the future would belong to those who stood together.